Hey there, and welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast that looks at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I'm here with Tyler Jones and Glen Willis. We're recording on a Tuesday evening, uh, less than 2 weeks from the beginning of training camp, and don't know exactly where to start. This feels like a September reach, but let me phrase the question this way. Um, the Skyhawks made a couple of trades recently. Miles Norris, gone. Rob Baker, gone. Are the Hawks clearing room for Mo Gay to play in College Park? And as an extension of that, does that mean we're getting closer to Larry Nance staying alongside Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu?
It's interesting you brought this up, Kevin, because I felt like I haven't listened. I don't think I've listened to the Larry Nance pod that Glenn did with your arch rival. But I did listen to the Onyeka Okongwu one. And something uh Brad brought up was that Onyeka, even though he had a foot procedure after the season, even during he still wasn't healthy. And so that brought up the interesting scenario of it's entirely possible Larry Nance um, is like injury insurance, considering both Okongwu and Capella's foot issues and the fact that the Hawks are trying to win. This is the point they brought up in that podcast. You want to hear elaborating more, but I just think uh, Nance legitimately might be here to stay. Uh, if there are if the Hawks are like even 75% concerned because of the nature of this team, the Hawks have shown throughout the Trae Young era they cannot afford any minutes going to guys who can't play the position at an above average level defensively. And so I feel like Larry Nance, while it might suck for him if everybody's healthy, there's a real possibility he's just not playing. But I think it's on the Hawks to do what's in their best interest over the player for once, and have some type of insurance policy. And I think they could probably, maybe sit Capella every once in a while, sit a Conway every once in a while if they're both healthy, so that Nance can stay warm and stay ready. But the Hawks can't afford like I think even though they're retooling, like they have to win this season, at least be somewhat respectable, and they can't afford it for their season to go into the tank again, like it has the previous season where when Collins and Gallo got hurt, they had no 2 years ago. They really had no forward plan. Then again, this season with Jalen Johnson. So I think this is the old Larry Nance might be the ultimate insurance case, and you're making the point, uh, Kevin, of the Hawks are clearing room in the G League because they know Mo Gay needs some reps down there, and Dominic Barlow as well.
What do you think,
Yeah,
Glenn?
I agree. I think Barlow and Gay need a lot of reps down there. We saw the positive impacts, that Ryan Schmidt and the crew down there kind of in College Park, and hope that that continues, even though different head coach this year. But I love that they're focusing on depth and trying to kind of develop this from the ground up. And it is interesting. One of the things that not sure if everyone listened to the Nance pod, but a big wrinkle is he's in a contract year, right? And typically agents don't tolerate their guys not playing in a contract year. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. Some people on Twitter asking, or X, whatever you're calling it, can he play back up four? And what I had shared, curious to get your guys' reaction, but I said I don't think I would play Nance next to Capella at the four, but playing next to Kongwu, there's enough kind of offensive versatility, handle, pass, connectivity kind of stuff there, where that could work some. And I feel like when we kind of zoom way out, I don't want to steer the whole podcast in this direction, but all Hawks fans are like, can we reduce our dependency on Capella and Hunter? That's where everybody's head is. That's where everybody's heart is. It's not where I am necessarily, but I get it. But it's one of those things like Chris Rock says. I get it. I understand it. That kind of thing. And so it's just going to be interesting to see what Quinn does to get Nance on the floor because in a contract year there is some pressure, understandable pressure to get him on the floor so he can earn what for Nance is probably one more meaningful contract, probably for where he is age wise, one more meaningful contract. He's good. He has. I don't want to say he's like some all-star level player, but he has a reliable baseline of play on both ends of the floor that helps you, like just like Tyler laid out very well. We Capella has missed some time. Okongwu has missed some time. As much as I love Bruno as a guy who just kind of goes out and tries hard and kind of does what he can do, not the same as what a veteran like Nance can do. And so I think he's an important part of the team, but I just don't know where Quinn is with like this is how I incorporate him enough for it to be meaningful for where he is from a contract standpoint.
In my just in general, my opinion, it should be situational. Like they're going to be teams where Nance at power four makes sense, and he's gonna play a lot, and then there's going to be games where maybe Capella plays less, and you go with a Okongwu Nance, or there's games that Okongwu's not doing so well, you go with Capella Nance instead of Okongwu. Like I just think Quinn's got to be flexible in this regards. With they're all like this is the benefit of having three guys of this caliber is to utilize them. Similar, I think uh, it's somewhat different, but the Raptors when they won their championship, they had the Ibaka, the Saul, where they would only start one of them depending on the matchup. I'm not saying Quinn should do that in its entirety, but like Nick Nurse was willing to go to lengths of like we're going to match up based on the team, what's needed defensively on this night, and I think Quinn should probably do that, just mainly because all three of these guys ultimately aren't, unless Okongwu like truly breaks out, then we're talking about something else. And I think Okongwu should get the opportunity to truly break out. But if Okongwu was the same player he was last year, I have no problem with Quinn just kind of picking and choosing who he feels that gives him the best opportunity to win that night. That's because and I think that's just in general how Quinn should operate this team. The only, like I've said before, the only mainstays to me are Trey and Bogey. Everybody else is completely interchangeable, depending on matchup. So that's how I think it should go. But I don't know if Quinn's that experimental with rotations. But I feel like this roster is built for experimentation, just based on like the skills a lot of these guys, like Gary Matthews, even somebody like a Dominic Barlow or a David Roddy. Like, these are deep bench guys, but they have unique abilities that on certain nights could be the difference and open up a game or bring a game back. Like, and I just think Quinn needs to be aware, like I think this coaching staff needs to be cognizant of when they can get these guys into the game and they can be optimal. Primarily because like you don't have like these quote unquote star guys other than Trey and Bogey really,
And I
and
think,
Jalen.
to go back to the contract year thing, I think they can buy time for this experiment to see if Okongwu and Nance can work together in the right situations. They can buy time to see if Okongwu's, healthy with regards to his foot. And you could just string it out like at the trade deadline. Like if you need to, you can assure them that, okay, if you're not playing here, we'll get you out or we'll cut you and you pick wherever you want to go. Like you can buy some time for him to find out if he has a role, and if he doesn't, get him somewhere where he does. So it's not, you don't have to have everything sorted October 1. Like
That's true.
it can take some time. And to go with that, it does feel like a lot of the centers have been sort of sponged up, and there's no marquee center free agents out there. There's probably not a lot of teams with the depth that the Hawks have. So, there should be a market at the trade deadline if things are going well enough that they can afford to lose one of them.
Yeah, I mean the thing that helps too is Nance is a pro. He's a vet. He's not gonna be a drama queen or he's not gonna bark or whatever. But I think it's fair come down to the trade deadline if he's not playing regularly. The right thing to do kind of situation, assuming Capella and Okongwu were both healthy. And that's something I think you have to kind of. I think that's a great point, Kevin. You can kind of wait and see what is the health situation, at the position. And it's interesting. I don't have as much. My day job keeps me super busy. I can't listen to all the other like national podcasts, but over the weekend I listened to Nance on the Hoop Collective, and I was noting like he didn't say like I'm excited to be going to Atlanta, or he just sounded like a pro. Like I'm going to go down, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to show up, I'm going to be constructive. I mean, I'm summarizing what the tone more than the words of what I felt I heard. But I mean, that's one of the reasons that a team is willing to accept a guy like him because you know that he's not going to be a problem. He's not going to, start kind of creating, waves and kind of rocking the boat and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, you do right by him if and when the time comes that it's like, okay, he needs to be in a better situation to earn. Again, I think he has one more meaningful contract, probably ahead of him, and you want to help him get there as best you can, depending on your own situation with the roster.
I mean, ideally, he'd probably wish he was still in New Orleans. Like he'd be the day one starter, and it wouldn't be, any question. Like here in Atlanta, it's not about how good he is. The Hawks have two centers already that they're committed to. One has institution in Capella, and the other has like investment with the lottery pick plus a contract extension that he's going to be working on starting this season. Like Nance, it almost doesn't matter how good he is. Like he's just going to be the third. Like he's going to be third on the priority list unless there's a trade. But I've said this before. I don't see the Hawks doing anything meaningful until the trade deadline, just based on how the rest of the market is looking at. Like, and also maybe some of this stuff would change once training camp starts and like people start going into work for the first time in 2 months. So who knows?
Yeah, I know. For me, it's like this is the way I think about it. And Kevin, I don't know if you do, but I look at like Charlotte, and it's like Lamelo's really never, apart from Zeller, Lamelo's never really played with a veteran center. You look at Indy and the guy they're playing behind Miles Turner, and it's and I enjoy Isaiah Jackson a lot, but it's like for where they are, is that the right depth piece? Is Jalen Smith the right depth piece, right? In Portland, you're trying to bring along younger. For me, I'm like these teams that have young guards that don't have a veteran on there. It's like DeAndre Ayton, the guy you want like helping you. No, it's not for me. Not a guy I'm trying to really elevate guard play. And it's like those are the teams to me should be kind of really trying to check in and be like, I just need a good veteran guard who knows how to do all the little stuff, all the helpful stuff. And those are the teams that kind of surprise me that they don't come kind of asking for an opportunity to acquire him. Because if I was trying to develop guards that I've invested in, big time lottery pick or whatever it might be, that's what I'd be looking to do. And so for me, I'm curious, even as we get into October, November, December, whatever the timing is, like if I were building a team around a young guard, like that's what I want to do.
But this is how teams rebuild now. Um, I mean, we saw it with the Hawks until they decided to invest in trading for Capella and signing Bogey and Gallen and all that. Like they kind of go bottom of the barrel. And yeah, I think we also got to understand like these veterans don't want to play on bad teams. They just don't, unless they're going to get overpaid for it. And with how just how like every team is counting every dollar now on the salary account more so than ever. Like they don't want to like these bad teams don't want to over leverage themselves because then like they're saddled with these anchor contracts that they can't do anything with that teams don't want to trade for. Like, so it's just it's a tough environment for these teams. And if they drafted a young big like You know what? Well, like the Blazers, for example, they already got Clingan, they got Robert Williams and DeAndre Ayton. Like they already got such a
Yep.
log jam. Like that takes
Yep.
them out of any big discussion. They're trying to get rid of these guys, some of these guys. Um,
But like
look
Cade,
elsewhere.
like what about like how much would he help Cade?
I
Right?
don't understand. The Pistons are so in the tank for Jalen Duren. I'm not. They have.
Yeah.
They still
Yeah.
like to me like them going after this. I know this is not a Pistons podcast, but like to me them going after like Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. I'm like, your biggest problem right now is defensive. Your
Yeah.
big does not know what to do in pick and roll situations. The Hawks can run 8 billion pick and rolls and beat the team by 30 points with whoever they have on the floor, regardless of the talent level, because Jalen Duren's not giving you a chance. It doesn't matter how talented he is.
Yeah.
It does
Yeah.
The talent doesn't matter. You have to be able to defend basic pick and roll. If you can't do the basics, the 29 other teams will punish you. They won't even waste time doing anything else other than running basic pick and roll with your big, exposing him in space, and getting easy baskets at the rim. And like to me, I'm like the Pistons not shoring up that aspect of their team. I understand they have these shooting concerns, but like centers, it's we talk about it like the numbers back this up. The eye test also backs up. If you don't have good center play in the NBA today, you're just not going to have a chance. It doesn't matter how good the rest of your players are. The Clippers, when they have to go away from Zubac, are toast. Regardless of the four other guys they have on the floor, they had four Hall of Famers on the floor last year. When Zubac got played off the floor, they didn't have another option. They're done. Like the Thunder, they spent $30 million on a potential backup center that might play like what 15, 18 minutes a night. Just so that when Chet comes out the game, they're not dead in the water. Like you're the Sixers fans cry about this all the time. We don't have a backup center. We don't have a good backup center because when Embiid goes out the game, it doesn't matter. He plays 44 minutes. In those 4 minutes, the game ends. In those 4 minutes, he has to sit on the bench because he's 7'3", 800 pounds. The game ends. Like that's reality of the league. He's not in it now.
Let's bring it back to the Hawks for a minute. Let me ask you this question.
Just like two more things. Backup center Miami, Khalil Ware. Like Jalen Smith's going to be in Chicago. Miami, you got like underperforming offensive guards, and you got Goga and Wendell, right? So anyway, put a bow on it. There are teams that need a professional veteran center. That's there when if the Hawks are like, now's the time, it's there. Okay, bring it back to the Hawks, Kevin.
So every season there's going to be holes. Like you look at the Hawks from last season, they didn't have enough point of attack defense, and they just didn't have enough size at forward. And so I want you to, part one, I want you to anticipate for me, what's the hole in the team that they have this season? And then just number two, because we kind of danced around it a little bit tonight. Last season they had Wes Matthews. And whatever he did on the court, he did a lot off the court. Like every team kind of, there's still a lot of young guys on the Hawks. You need somebody who's going to be in Zachary's ear. And the Hawks don't have a lot of those guys. Are they going to miss Wesley Matthews? Is there somebody they can kind of step in and fill that? Because, like, I think in particular with Jalen Johnson, like he played a big role kind of keeping the rails on for Jalen when he needed a little bit more focus. Like, is that something that is potentially a hole for them this year?
I mean, it's a fair question, and I think that's. I mean, if you had a chance to listen to Hoop Collective Pod, what I think Brian Lindhorst said was they wanted your veteran presence. They valued your veteran presence. So for me, I think Quinn. It's on Quinn and his team to kind of figure out who plays when and who's in what pecking order, stuff like that. I think Nance will help there a ton, and I mean the other part of that is just having more clarity at the guard position that we're playing their Trey. Like DeJounte's not here anymore. There was some ambiguity. There was some distribution, some weird kind of distribution objective around like making sure DeJounte was getting enough kind of opportunity, and that solved itself when because of course the Trey got hurt. But I mean, for me, I look at it, it's like, yeah, it's a fair question. Like Reese Shea does need help over there. Hunter is not the most vocal kind of leader that you have on the team. Clint is a leader in just in terms of the professionalism he brings, but he's not a vocal leader as far as I know. And Nance is a guy who has that sort of EQ, that as best I could tell from you just hearing him doing interviews and things like that. But beyond Nance, I think it's and Bogey. Bogey talks about sacrifice. Bogey has a lot of that too. Beyond that, I think it's fair to kind of think about, do they have enough of that? That's for sure, right? And I love that they're building depth and young guys using the G League, using their player development system. Um, but I mean, part of it is just like guys that go out and play the right way, guys that play in the role that they're asked to play in. And I know Nance will do that. I mean, for me, you guys know I'm a outlier on Hunter, but I think there's going to be a challenge for Hunter to kind of fit into a different role this year to embrace that, and I hope he does. I don't. I mean, I don't. I never even had one conversation with him ever. But Nance has to be a very constructive, present teammate. Kind of fit in. But I do think Matthews added a lot last year for Jalen, and I don't know where that might come from this year. It's a good question.
Yes. Leadership, I've been thinking about this for a while. Um, there are different ways to lead. LeBron famously, well, is famously now, is that he's a extremely hard worker, especially in practice. The Olympic team talked about how he attacks every drill 100%, goes hard all the time in practice, very vocal, and X and O stuff and all that good stuff. And like, I think for Trey Young, a thing he can do, and it's asking him not to change his personality, be this like outspoken guy, lead the locker room, all that. I don't personally, as somebody who's an athlete, I didn't care for that. I didn't pay attention to that. But I do think it's important for him to, for really what he did the other day, where he brought Reese Shea and Dyson to Oklahoma, of all places, and he did a little thing. And I think, and he brought Reese Shea out to the Oklahoma Sooners football game, which that was probably an experience for Zachary. Like, what, why are they stopping so much in this sport? It's a great question.
This is not football. This is not football.
It's not football, but I think it's important for him to reach out and connect in basketball ways. Like Trey is such a genius on the basketball field. I do think it would help his teammates if, in film session, they're watching the game, and he might be already doing this. I don't know. I don't have any insight, but like, just being like, hey, this is what I'm seeing on the floor. When I bring the ball up, I need you and you to sprint to the corners every time. You got to sprint to the corner every time. It's not even worth talking. I think Chris Paul, really, really is the floor generals where he's telling everybody what they need to do. I'm not saying Trey needs to go to that level, but I do think it would help the team if offensively he took more. He's the usage. I understand he takes all the use, all that good stuff, but I do think it'd be good for him to be like, okay, this is my thought process. Why do I take these 35? It's to open up the space, not just for myself, but for cutting lanes for you guys, because everybody has their eyes on me at all times. The back cut is always there. So if we can get some more communication that way, from the guards, because like he gets it from his bigs, but he's never really had a guard like Dyson Daniels. And I think, or Zachary Reese, really, a wing like Zachary Reese, where these are guys you can throw passes to them towards the rim and they can finish consistently even through contact. So I think there's a different level of, he's going to have to form real, like he has it with Bogey. he has with Bogey, like intuitively, because they're just basketball geniuses, and they've been playing so much together now, like it's secondhand nature. But I think it's important for him to develop that relationship with those two in particular, just because I sense that's where the Hawks want to go. Like they want those two guys next to Trey a lot. And so, like, I think it's on Trey to initiate that relationship in order to ease them, to get them into the flow of the game so that they know what they need to do. There's stuff he can't teach them about. He can't teach them about defense. He can't teach them what they need to do in the rotation, all the good stuff. But I do think offensively, he can show them the pathway to success. So that's something that can be done. But overall, like to your initial question, Kevin, the biggest weakness is probably going to, unless Kobe Buffkin makes a jump, it's going to be backup point. Like
Yep.
it just is.
Yep.
Backup point.
Yeah, and,
Yes.
and maybe by February, March, it's fine. But my expectation is in October, November, December, it's a big adjustment period. Real rotation minutes every single game is a big step from anything he's doing last year. So that's where my head, with your question too. I love that Tyler brought it back around to that. That's where my head goes too. And I love Kobe. I love Kobe, but the first 30 games of the year, whatever number, for me, it's going to be up and down, at that position. So that's interesting to me. In terms of Trey's leadership, I love last year that he was taking more accountability, visible accountability on the
Absolutely.
floor. When he made a mistake, hitting his chest and kind of, draw attention to himself, that was a step, I love that, and he, and again, I like that Tyler said too, that you don't ask Trey to be a person that he's not, right? But in his own way and in whatever authentic way he can to show accountability, show ownership. And I thought he took a big step there last year. And maybe that'll help fill some of the gap from Wes Matthews.
Leadership in sports is just one of my biggest pet peeves. Like it, it matters, but it doesn't matter in the way that fans think it does.
Well,
It matters. It matters in the
TV
same.
TV broadcasting like amplifies it like 20 times what it needs to be. Like
Yeah,
look at this, like it's the TV effect to me. And
that's that's
I played quarterback in high school, so I mean, but for me it was like, does everybody know what you're doing? Like, are we all on the play? Do you understand? Just it's the little stuff.
I will say, like, for as bad as the season got, like I felt like, they at least tried, even when they like, that, and that takes there's a certain amount of leadership in that. We know we're not best equipped to handle what's going on. Like even when they had all the injuries, they didn't have the forwards. They showed real leadership as a collective unit, and I get fans were mad they were losing, but like to me, they were still competing out there. Garrison Matthews was still giving everything he had.
Yep.
When DeAndre
Every possession. Yep.
when DeAndre Hunter came back for injury, he gave it everything he's had. I know I have my problems with him, but he gave it everything he had. Uh, when Bruno was showing up, he was 100% full goal all the time. Vit Krejci comes out of nowhere. He's like, I want this opportunity. I'm going to give everything I have. Like these guys were fighting and competing, and I feel like if they can keep that now with the physical the size upgrade they got in this season and the talent upgrade defensively, that's where that's how you push yourself up from being just a 500 to slightly above
Yep.
500 team into
Yep.
being a really good basketball team. Like the foundations was built last season for what they could potentially do this year, and more importantly, even next year when they're even more mature.
Yeah, and it was a weirder version, and I definitely hear Kevin on this, but even DeJounte in their games was like, I'm freaking tired, but I got to do the offense. I have to,
Absolutely.
and so he even, I think I want to tip my hat and kind of, again, it was one of those things like it's not sustainable, not what you want to rely on every single game, but he was like, I'll do it, and he did what he could,
Look, man, that performance he had against the Celtics, where he shot like 42 shots or whatever, like it's one of the most impressive. I know it's not analytically, and like he wasn't that efficient and all that good stuff. Like
That's,
I'm an analytics nerd too. I understand he wasn't efficient.
that,
That
that's
was
a,
that was like, excuse my language, badass what he did.
yeah.
And
That's an average Saturday at the pickup court for Kevin. So
for
There you go.
for all the things that DeJounte didn't bring to the table, he brought that.
Yep.
And like he brought that consistently, his aggression offensively. Like, and I'll have respect for him. I'm hoping, Pelicans will be a better environment for him. And I hope like and I hope that the Hawks players understand that hey, just because it didn't work doesn't mean like it was it was a failure or like or like we're losers because me and Trey didn't work in Atlanta these couple seasons and like the rest of us didn't have the season we thought we were going to have the last couple of seasons. Like that's that's not sports, man. Like you go out there with the guys you got and you give it everything you have, and if you and it even when like through an 82 game season, at some point, oh, we just don't have the talent.
Yep.
But we still got to go out there and compete because you know what? We got we got a fill arena, 14,000 plus fans every night who want to see us play. We got hundreds of thousands of millions of people who watch on Bally's or on the however they can watch the Hawks every night. Like we this this is what it means to be a professional, and this is what the young guys. I think this is what's important. Like guys like Jalen, guys like Okongwu who have grown up in this environment of the Hawks, where okay, we're not winning, but it's not acceptable for us to dog it. We're not going to go out there and be like some of the games I saw from the Wizards this last half decade or so, or some of the games I saw from the Hornets. Um, when things completely go off the rails for them the last couple of years, like it's not okay to just not give a professional effort.
Yeah, and Steve Clifford spoke openly about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
I do think that leadership is going to be pretty important. Tyler poo-pooed it a little bit, and I just think that there are three players that are really going to need it. Like Zachary, like I think Trey's going to do wonders for Zachary, but he's going to need to process a lot of things on defense in a short amount of time. And even if Trey could help him, they just play different roles. They see different things defensively. They experience different things. Like he's going to need a lot of consultation to be in the right spots defensively. And another player, Kobe. Like if the biggest hole is backup point guard, like Kobe needs tutoring. Like he wasn't always on the ball at Michigan, and he didn't get to play that much in his rookie season. Like there's just a lot there. I think Bogey is kind of the backup point guard. Like Kobe's there. They're going to I think he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot when Trey sits. And so that's going to help. But, Kobe's going to need a lot of pointers this season. And again, Trey's going to help him there. I think that's a natural mentorship. But I also think Jalen still, like, it's just a big season for him, and it's just different things. And I still think, there are a lot of the young guys on the Hawks that have matured to the point where they don't necessarily need someone in their ear. And I think Jalen still needs that because it's going to be a different role for him this season. And, he's going to need coaches, players, some veteran, some mentor pointing him in the right direction because he's gonna need some of that this season. And Wes helped him so much, I think, last season. You could see them doing it in practice. You could see him doing it on the sideline. But he's going to need some more of that this season, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is, I mean, this is kind of a throwback to maybe our generation, but you hear like, oh, the great players make the worst coaches, make the worst mentors because they think everybody should just play up to their own standards. Like Kobe, you're not Trey. Like no one is. Like literally no one is, right? But I still think, Trey's growing every year in that part of his person. All I can see is what I see in the game, because you have more access than Tyler or me, obviously, and stuff. But you still see growth, there. But it's gonna be interesting. So I mean, in some ways, coaching staff can step in there, but it's more. I think players will tell you it's more meaningful when it comes from another player.
And it varies from person to person. I think for someone like Jalen, like I think it just flows better coming from a player.
Yeah, for sure, right? And like the big example I think back to is like when in Bam year 1 and 2, like Spo would barely play him on the floor without Kelly Olynyk on there, and Kelly Olynyk was coaching him on the floor through everything, and I if I don't know if Bam's on a Hall of Fame trajectory. Probably come up strong. I don't know. Anyway, not a thing. But if he was, if he plays till he's 38 this level, maybe when he gets on his number retired in Miami, which he will, right? A thank you to Kelly
Wait,
Olynyk
didn't they
because Kelly
retire
Olynyk.
that for Dan Marino or something? Isn't that number already retired or something?
Well, yeah, yeah. They'll have to fix that. But anyway, it's just an example of like Spo was like, I need a veteran on the floor with Bam, coaching him and talking him through everything live on the floor. And it'll be interesting to see how Jalen deals with not having that resource he had last year.
It's funny you guys say this because I think this is just not what front office is want. Like they don't care for this because they don't want to pay veterans.
Yeah,
They like the cheap young guys, and so like they prefer that coaches be those leaders.
yeah,
Coaches tell them what they need to do, and that they get their instruction from their coaches. And that's kind of what the Hawks staff. That's what the Hawks want as a culture. Like they want to get back to the Budenholzer era of you listen to X, Y, and Z. We tell you what needs to be done.
yeah,
Random veteran X
yeah,
ain't gonna help you, bro. He not
yeah,
out here. We need your talent, and I need you to do this, that, and
yeah.
the third. And I think it's going to be the hard hand from Quinn this year, where like I hear you, Kevin. Was like, yeah, he gets it from Wes Matthews, but you know what? It, you want to be one of the big stars in this league, Jalen, bro? The babying is over. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
responsibility. And I think Quinn talked about this last year, where he said, I forget when he said this, where he's like, I don't want to put him in a box. I think he can do everything, and I expect him to do everything. Or I don't know if it was expect, but it was like it was strong language in terms of I have high expectations for Jalen, but if he wants to meet them, he's got to do the little things. Like
Close,
that's his
close out on a shooter, like sprint from the paint to the 3-point line, right? All that little stuff, right?
yeah. And so I just think to me like I mean, the Hawks got 8 billion coaches. One of them is going to connect with a player, and they'll figure it out with
Yeah.
one of these guys. Like that's why they get paid money, Kevin.
No,
Like
I
I
know. There's
just
just in-game communication that the coaches are 60 feet away. Like it's sometimes you get a reminder from somebody who's 2 feet away from you on the floor, standing next to you at the free throw line. Like you just,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking back to Scott Foster and Goga moment, right? Like it has to go better than that, right? So
all right. Well, we're gonna have a season here pretty soon.
I'm excited.
It's gonna be an interesting one. There's a lot to learn about this team with as many variables as have changed. So, all right. Good
Good night,
night,
Bob.
Bob.
good night, Bob.